Hello and welcome. This is Brett from the Wild Beer Company, and you are about to watch myself and Tom go through a tutored beer and cheese tasting. We're going to be tasting 3 cheeses and 1 of their cured meats. Those are going to be paired with 4 of our crazy beers. This is all because you have purchased the Wild Beer and Westcombe tasting beer and cheese tasting box. This is something that we love to do, and keep an eye out on our website. If you didn't purchase this one, we put these boxes together periodically throughout the year and go through often live tastings where you can interact. So this one is during Christmas time, so we thought we'd do it ahead of time so you can watch it at your leisure, in and out. And to that point, underneath in the description, there are timestamps for the tastings themselves. And in these timestamps, you're able to skip ahead to different points. If you feel as though we're rambling on a little bit too much for you and want to just get on to the next cheese. So thank you so much for joining in, purchasing the beer and cheese box, the last one of 2020. Here's to a new year going forward, getting done with year 2020. Let's all stay safe and enjoy what's coming ahead.
Cool.
Tom, where are we?
So we're a bit different this time, isn't it? So this is our cellar, so about 3 meters underground in Westcombe, and this is where we house all of our cheddars. We've got around about 5,000 cheeses behind us. There's about room for about 6,000, but as it's kind of late in the year, our age profile drops a little bit. So yeah, it's quite a beautiful atmospheric kind of space, basically, as you can hear the echoey space as well. Yeah, and we've got some amazing cheeses, and also I bought the Sobrassada along that we'll be tasting as well, which I'm very excited to give you a taste of.
Yeah, I can't wait. This place is quite inspiring. It's like cheese cellar and our old barrel cellar, or our barrel cellar that we call the barrel library, that's your old cheese cellar.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. I mean, to be fair, it's another one of the many reasons why the Westcombe wild beer relationship works so well. Because if it wasn't for wild beer, then we wouldn't actually be standing in this space. You know, yeah. You pushed us out of our old stores, so we had to dig a hole and build a new one, basically.
Yeah, so it's a lot of people. Well, just before I say that, so this beer that we're just opened is called Concorporo. Now, this is a beer unlike typical beer. We were quite inspired by the flavors that it created, that it was more like a wine, more like an alternative beer experience. So it's not carbonated, so don't freak out. It's not necessarily paired with any particular cheese, but we feel as though it goes with such a variety of cheese and fermented flavors and the meats that you're doing, that we wanted to include it in the box so that you can kind of taste it along. So you can just open it up and have a sip of it while you're tasting through the proper tasting that we're going to do.
Nice. I enjoyed this one. I'm quite excited. Wow.
It's different. It's
oh, that's delicious. I like it. Actually. You got to almost think like natural wine style kind of thing. It's really, I know it's beer, but like that booziness and.
Well, it's kind of boozy. I think it's 11.2% alcohol, and exactly right with that natural wine character. So this has Somerset. What's that stuff that goes into Ribena? Blackcurrant. Somerset blackcurrants. Yeah. That were saved from being turned into Ribena. It was last year's harvest that they got crushed and macerated in an oak barrel for a few days. So that kind of started a fermentation. And then we blended it with really kind of high octane imperial stout that was aged in a bourbon barrel, winey beast from a wine barrel, yeah. As well as Ninkasi, which was aged again in a wine barrel. So all that got blended together, and it's been aged kind of together to create that depth and character. And and length of flavor as well. Just like you talk about a 5 mile cheese, you can go into that later. But I don't recommend driving with beer, but it's a 5 mile beer. And maybe Tom will explain it. If he doesn't, I'll do it later.
Yeah, right. Wow, it has got such a long flavour to it. Oh, I do like that.
But that's you kind of see why it could be its own tasting, but it also could go with the natural kind of, maybe farmy isn't the right word, but like farmy, meaty, richer characters of your meats, or the depth and richness and length of all the cheeses.
Yeah, right.
The acidity really could go well, maybe with the Caerphilly. But
yeah, I don't know. I really like the kind of like that meat thing to actually go with them. That would be
Cool. Let's try that when we get to that.
Yeah, nice. Wicked.
Cool. So what's first? Hopefully you guys all got one of these inside your box in your unboxing, and I'm going to be following along because I don't have it in my memory. But first up is Wild IPA and the Caerphilly.
Nice. Shall I talk about the Caerphilly a little bit?
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm kind of going to, if you watch previous videos that me and Brett have done, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit, but it's worth repeating because we had a bit of a change up with last year, or this year actually, with the team and stuff, and like the Caerphilly I feel has just gone from strength to strength. It's pretty delicious. What we're looking for is this kind of, I suppose if you buy like a Caerphilly from a supermarket and stuff, what you tend to get, that kind of like mass-produced Caerphillys have this kind of sandy texture. And actually, in a textbook, Caerphilly should be like lemony, citrus, crumbly,
almost.
And those commodity style cheeses, they like tick every single box. But what they don't get is like true Caerphilly. When it's been made, as Jason makes it, like by hand, he hand stirs this, you get this kind of beautiful texture. So it's got the crumbliness, but that kind of like really like soft, like rich kind of lactic thing as well. Have a taste. The other thing as well to note is that the cheeses that you've got in the box, again, you know, it's towards the end of the year now, so the stocks are getting a bit low, so they're slightly on the younger side, but you still get this kind of breakdown. You get a breakdown around the outside, that kind of like really soft outside, which is caused by the mould, and then you get that chalky kind of centre. What do you reckon of that?
So I just had the centre bit, and then I just bit off the rind and the breakdown separate, and absolutely right, that brighter, more of those tick boxes on the middle, that crumblier bit in the middle. I can't wait to get it with this. I remember, hang on, talking with my mouth here.
I know what you mean. It's like, but for me, there's something that's changed a little bit. You know, like it's a good like representation of like terroir, I guess. This cheese was made in November, so the cows have just transitioned from their like summer diet, being out to grass. They come in for winter, but I just feel like there's a richness and like basiness about this more than we've had previously, I think, which I find really exciting.
It's fuller. Does that mean that richer character?
Yeah.
It's not as, I don't want to say thin. I'm using words that I would use for beer. It's fuller, richer, not thin. It doesn't, it's got more, that length and depth is more on this.
Yeah.
And that's from what the cows are eating in November? Or is that the temperature it's been aging?
No. So it's a combination of like with every single cheese that's going forward, like it's a combination of like everything. So cheese making is this ridiculously complicated equation that I don't think we'll ever get right. We'll strive towards it, but it's a combination of like the weather, the milk, the feed, the aging, the storage, the people, the attitude, everything. And then that makes that particular flavour. Yeah.
Amazing. I like the Caerphilly was the first cheese that I learned about the breakdown. I think Andrew taught it to me. I think he got it. It wasn't your cheese, the first one. It was
yeah, cool with Caerphilly. Would it?
It was 2000.
Yeah. Great Caerphilly bacon.
Amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And there was a lot more breakdown of what we had. I don't know if it was just an older one or that's how they make it, but you can really see a bouncier character on the outside. And I just remember falling in love with the taste of that rind, that mushroomy, kind of earthier, umami character. And then the breakdown is just incredible. It made me want to eat more cheese, be more creative with it.
Was two cheeses in one? It's like more bang for your buck, isn't it?
So, beer, Wild IPA, product of 2020. The craziness. We did a lot of thinking. What do we want to do? What do we want to produce this year? What do we want this year to be known in terms of, like, for us? What do we want to look back and say what we did? And we wanted to create a beer that said everything who we are and try to propel us forward, go through 2020 and get out the other side stronger. And that was Wild IPA. So as a team, we decided we wanted to make a beer that is from the ground up designed for food, to be drunk with food and paired with it, to be refreshing with it or to be complex with it. And that's a really difficult thing to do. So it went from raw ingredients selection to yeast selection to hops, and then also the process. And without getting too tied up in all that, just this beer goes through a fermentation that uses 3 yeasts. It's got the main fermentation using ale yeast and red wine yeast. And then when we dry hop it, which I'll come back to in a second, it's using, what yeast is it? It's like a white wine kind of Viognier yeast. It helps the aging process bring out these kind of brioche, richer, fuller character. Because technically this beer is really dry. It's not sweet, but it's got this body to it that yeast is really bringing the character. And then on the aroma, we're getting kind of pink grapefruit,
passion fruit,
coconut, passion fruit. This like tropical notes. It's kind of a bit cold in here. Passion fruit. It's a really good one. And I often get coconut, grapefruit, tropical, little hints of ripe mango, but also that grapefruit and lemony zestiness, and that's what I think goes really well with the Caerphilly.
I have to say I'm all over this beer. I absolutely love it. I'm into an IPA anyway, but like this kind of the smell and the taste is like kind of like transports you back to like summer days. So it's absolutely ideal for winter to be transported back. Like, you know, to go with this cheese as well, you know, I always think that the Caerphilly is a really good like spring style cheese because it kind of like got that zesty kind of like really like, you know, awakening thing. And actually this is, I really get that in this as well. It's
one of my favorites. It's got to be definitely one of my beer of the year.
Nice.
Right up there. It is the beer of the year, definitely.
Well, if anything came out in 2020, and it was this is probably the joy. The only joy.
So, Wild IPA, Caerphilly, done. What's next?
Right.
What are we doing next? Let's see. Ooh, so this was hard. So beer and cheese tasting, and just pairing liquids and solids. It's kind of weird to say. It's always a dark art. You either never done it and you get nervous about doing it, or you've done it a lot and you kind of fumble around and think really hard, scratch your head. So this next one, I didn't know what to do first, but I was thinking this next one's intensity of the together tasting was going to be just a little bit more because of the Sobrassada. Right. But I think either one could have been first.
I think, well, this is going to be interesting. I haven't done this very much at all. Get the Sobrassada. So this is the Sobrassada. Can I talk about this a little bit? So this is a Sobrassada, right? This is a bit like, if you know Andouille, my pronunciation I apologise about, but Andouille tends to be a bit quite spicy and all that kind of stuff. And this one has got smoked paprika, it's got fennel, all sorts of things in there. And I love this. It's so good. It's really, really good.
It's really soft.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's supposed to be like a spreadable salami.
Okay.
So like, let's wind it back a bit. The reason why we're doing salami, you know, this should be a cheese business, and actually we're doing like salami and things like that. Why we started it is because of we're very lucky. We've got a guy called Paul Burton. He came originally to actually just manage our shop. But he had this background in salami production, and we have always felt a bit passionate about trying to tackle like moral problems in agriculture and in businesses. You know, I think it's our duty to actually communicate to people what it is to actually consume food and how you get there. And I think that this represents it as well. So we're working the pigs that we're getting. So this is from Tamworth Pigs. This is we're getting them from a guy called Fred Price, the Gothorme farmer. He's absolutely insane. Look him up on Instagram.
Yeah.
And he's doing this kind of like, we're very like-minded in the way that we farm. We're trying to move in this kind of movement which is about regenerative agriculture. So not only has he got the most incredible Tamworth pigs that are grazing on lucerne and cover crops and huge amounts of biodiversity, he's also growing like grains, heritage grains and all sorts of different things. So he's an insane farmer, but also, so that's why we're getting his pigs, and at the moment only his pigs, because we haven't found anybody quite as good as what he's doing. But also we're actually using some of the bull calves, because when you actually make cheese, you have to, a cow has a calf, and then it's 50-50 chance it's going to be a bull calf. And I felt actually, rather than just sell those calves on, we would actually make something from them. You know, it's a thing that we need to tackle. You know, and so we take them, we rear them on up to about 7-8 months old.
So on your farm?
On our farm.
Fred's.
Not on Fred's, no.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and then those become our salamis as well. Amazing to actually have the cheese on the cheese board.
Yeah.
It's so good. Anyway, let's try this. With a sobrassada, and also when you're actually doing stuff in this kind of fashionable thing, the sustainability thing, what I felt that you need to do is take like whole animals. So that's what we do. And with a whole animal, you actually have to create enough products to use up every single bit. Mm-hmm. When you're making salamis, you tend to take the fat from the back and also a bit of lean. Yeah. So it's like 25% fat and 75% lean. And then you're left with the belly fat, which is softer. So you need to create something that will actually use that up. So this is this. The softer fats. And I've got some bread.
Try to make it spreadable.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a spreadable, beautiful salami.
We don't have another Quantic as well, do we? More than one? No. Okay.
Let's get in there. Have a taste. So this, again, like you can really get in there. The beauty of this as well is like it can be used in cookings in so many different ways.
So just want to show you. Check this. So this is just, he's literally just dipped his knife in there and spread it across, just like spreadable marmite.
So yeah,
meat.
And this bread, this was baked this morning. We got a little bakery up in Bath, Landrace, and this. We actually grew the grain on the farm, right? Yeah. 2020 grain this is a massive mixture of different grains, and so this is like the essence of terroir right here, tasting both of these. And you can toast this as well. You could like use this sobrassada on pizzas.
That's one of the best pizzas we've done at home. We don't do so much Sunday lunch at home because I'm from America. That's not my background, but. we do lots of pizzas outside and cooked outside, and this has been amazing. It's definitely.
Yeah. I think that
straight away, it's like, it takes me back to growing up in California and having, there's similarities to Hispanic chorizo. So this is uncooked chorizo. It's like loads of paprika, garlic. It's tangy. It's got some sourness to it, even though it's not really fermented, the Hispanic one. And that aroma is taking me back. It's making my mouth water.
I just love using this in cooking, I really do. You can kind of start a dish off with this, just flick a little bit of that in, and then all of the fats come out of it, and then you just cook off the vegetables, and that's yeah.
So what I did with this last time I had it was I got some what are they called? Scallops.
Oh right, yeah.
So I kind of rendered some of the fat out of it, but not until it's disappeared. Took it out, fried the scallops in that, and then had it just with like spinach salad with the Sobrassada and seared scallops. So what we've got now with this one, Quantic. Quantic is also, I think Quantic's a product of this year. I don't think we did it before 2020. If we did, it was just in. So this is relatively new for us, and we looked at kind of mixing up the range of beers we make, and this was inspired by a trip I made to the US in 2019 to find hops. So there's one of the world's largest hop growing region is in the Pacific Northwest, kind of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, this area, and I went over, and you go over there and you kind of you're able to select lots of hops, not lots meaning oodles, but lots meaning this parcel of land grows. In this beer, the showcase hop is Simcoe, and so the acreage. So we went over there and I got to smell the rub and smell. What you do is you break the hop flower up, it becomes really sticky and resiny, and you can get that aromatic. And it's amazing to see if we chose lot.
Sorry, Dad.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to see if the door was open. It's fine. If we chose lot A versus lot B, we might get really big pine character, like walking through the woods, pine trees. But if we chose lot B, we might get really big grapefruit rind and bitterness and like pith.
Wow.
So what I do and what we do as brewers is we're able to find these different lots and then sometimes blend them together. So can I buy some from this purveyor and some from this purveyor and actually blend them together?
But are they the same hop variety? So same hop variety, but then just different spaces that they're grown in will make a massive influence.
Yeah.
Okay.
The space, but also the picking window. So what time they pick them off. No, they don't pick them off one by one. It's like a combine harvester type thing that breaks them off the vines. And that you want to collect all your, say, this variety, Simcoe, in a matter of 3 days.
Oh wow.
But if you pick it 10 days earlier, they might be more citrusy. And if you pick it 10 days later, they might be like really rich onion and garlic type character.
Oh, right.
So it's big business to like get it just right.
Yeah.
And the farmers and the growers, they really listen to us brewers because we're buying their hops based on what they smell and taste like now, not just on how bitter they are. That they want to listen to what we want. Because if they grow a certain variety, they're growing it so they can sell it, but if nobody buys it because it tastes of onion and garlic, then, and they don't know why, then they need that feedback loop. And that's from the customer to the brewer to the farmer. So that's that journey to the US or journey to Germany or here in the UK, trying to, create that loop of information. But Simcoe, key hop in Quantic.
What lot was this?
I don't know. A.
Yeah.
It was an inspiring one, right? So Simcoe is a hop that I didn't know I liked back when I started brewing, way back when 10 years ago or so. But it was the hop that I really liked, and when I started knowing more, learning more, I realized that's a hop that I like. And then I wasn't able to get it. It was all bought, purchased, so I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And going over there last year reintroduced me to it, and I was like, I gotta find a home for this. This is amazing again. It just kind of reinvigorated that imagination. So Quantic, brewed to be clear or just slightly hazy, brewed to have a little bit of bitterness, brewed to be aromatic with pine and citrus. There's a hint of mosaic hops, which is like a tropical note.
Yeah, I get that. It hasn't got the passion fruit as the IPA.
As the IPA.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that. In the IPA, there's a hop called Talus, which is brand new hop. And I think we might be the first, we're the first brewer in England to have that hop as our core beer, our flagship beer has that.
Oh wow.
Everybody else has it just as a one-off special to try.
Yeah.
This is a brand new hop, just got named this year. And in that one is Talus and Mosaic. And in this one is Simcoe and Mosaic. So Mosaic is a nice kind of like salt and pepper, with Simcoe being the big punchy one.
I think this works. With that Sobrassada, you need something to cut through, like the richness, and actually it does it perfectly. Nice. So, how big is the lot? Is that like, does it vary? Is it like a field or?
So I was just doing a hop rubbing with a British farmer yesterday, over Zoom, of course. Nice. I didn't get to go to the farm, but we did it over Zoom. They sent the samples to us, and we loaded up on the TV and did it, and they told us about the different varieties in the farming and the technicalities of each one. I just lost my train of thought.
So the size of the lot.
The size of the lot, yes. Yeah. Sorry, I remember why I did that. Why I said that was, I thought you had...
I love doing these things with you guys. It's bloody brilliant, I have to say.
My head is always in the clouds. Size of the lot. They said, I asked them, like, is there different lots of this hop? It was Pilgrim, British hop variety, and they said, well, there is, but they're all mixed together. And I was like, but this is smelling so awesome. Surely can I smell the other lot that's next to it? And he said, because I've been out to America with this hop salesman.
Yeah.
And he said, Brett, you gotta remember, this is England, not America. You will get one lot in America that's the size of this entire farm.
Right.
And we were trying like 12 different varieties, and in this is the largest hop growing region of the world. That it was, I don't know how many hectares it was, but they're big, so they're large. And a big part of that lot choosing that makes it unique is the time that they pick it.
Yeah.
And the temperature they dry the hops at. Whether they're using natural gas or oil to fire it doesn't go into the stuff, but it does create different character.
Right.
Because they have these massive burners and they blow under and dry and yeah.
Can you dry them naturally or not? Not so much. Not to get
so
the
much.
intensity and the flavour.
No, because you need to pick them and dry them all within the same day, within the same hours, like very quickly.
Yeah.
So drying will take about 8 hours, I believe.
Right.
Could be corrected on that, but Yeah, being told to speed on. So we'll get to the next one. We can keep talking about hops because there's kind of, yeah, we'll talk a little bit.
I love hops.
Yeah.
The next cheese, are we going to move on to the cheddar? I think it is, isn't it?
It's cheddar.
Nice, fantastic. So, pretty apt actually being so incredible, this cheese behind us. But this cheddar is, this was made on the 10th of December last year. So it's literally just come up to a year, about a year old now, like 12 months or so. And yeah, I think it's pretty delicious. Again, like with the new team that we had last year, everything's just tightened up a little bit, and it's so good. We've got Rob Howard, who's our cheddar maker, like master cheddar maker. He's doing such a great job. And what we're able to achieve, and I suppose actually going back to what I was saying before about like what makes the flavour, it literally is like, it's not any one thing will make a difference. It's a combination of absolutely everything kind of working in harmony to actually make it great. We a couple of years ago, we had to use someone else's milk for a bit. One word that affected the texture, the flavour, just everything like went like just a different direction. So we've like wound it back to you know, using ours. Like we only used it for a short period of time, but it was quite an interesting experiment. You know,
Forced to
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow, can't imagine that.
But also a lot of this flavour comes from like here as well. You know, we're like 3 meters below ground. We're trying to keep the temperature here of around about like 10.5 degrees Celsius and between like 87 and 92% humidity. So we've got the spring water is running through these copper pipes in the ceiling up here, and we only just bring like fresh air in every 6 hours, just a 15-minute just blast of a little bit of fresh air, and that's it. So we want to have like the most calm environment for like promoting the mold on the outside of the cheeses, which will just develop more and more flavour. So there's like an earthy, rich, like lovely kind of thing going on with it. Right, I'll clean that off a minute and we'll taste. It's a nice space to work in, the store behind us. It's where we also have Tina the Turner, our cheese turning robot, bless her. Yeah, she's getting pretty famous at the moment, old Tina. Because the thing about cheddar is that you need to turn them over, and also they'll get this dust on the outside, so they need to be hoovered as well. And so, like, you can imagine, you know, until 2016, it was me and the guys in there turning these 25 kilo cheeses over at the end of like a cheese making day. Man,
It was yeah.
it was tough. It was, and like robots. It was, I don't know. I was like really worried about it. I thought it was a bit controversial having like this business that dates back to 1879, and then you get a robot, and we're all about, you know, tradition and all those type of things. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing artisan about turning over cheese.
Yeah.
Just hurts.
It's the same. It's the same with modernizing in the beer world and like craft versus not craft. And people talk about the craft brew house. I want some cheese.
Yeah.
I want some cheese. The craft in making beer, and if you get a brewery, like where you do the day one of brewing, turning grain and hops and water into beer, just if you get that and you buy a really expensive kind of automatic one, people say, oh, where's the craft in that?
Mm.
But we, or in packaging,
Yeah.
it's like, well, where's the craft in putting caps on bottles?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually, if you can, the automation can help you focus on what really matters, not just on like, oh man, I spent too long eating my lunch and I forgot the temperature change that I needed to do, and that means that whole batch of beer is different. And I guess variability in big ways is a good thing, I don't know, but it means you can focus on little bits.
So I love variability. I think that we don't get enough of it, and it should be embraced. Because like no like two people are the same, are they? So everybody's different. So actually, to think that we have a variable taste, buds, which is marvelous. Like I don't mind if somebody doesn't like it. That's absolutely fine. I'm good with that because I'm not trying to produce something for absolutely everybody. But I like the fact that people who can experience, like, you go into a cheese shop, you say, can I have a taste of Westcombe? But make sure you like actually go in and taste it on that particular day, because it ain't gonna taste the same as that like the next day or the next day. And how good is that? Like, that's the most, and
that's good.
And like, to go back to it, it's like, the bit that really counts for me is the interaction between the people. So Rob, like Jason, like James, Jan, all the guys that are in the dairy, their interaction with what's going on in the milk and the changes that are actually going on. That is the magic, that's the core. You could never replicate that with a machine, you just can't. But turning a valley cheese over, yes you can.
Yeah. And what I mean, the equivalent to opening a valve.
Oh yeah.
And that there's like, what is that? What's that matter?
Well, standing there with a jug of beer and pouring them in bottles, that's not going to make it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think of cheese?
I think, what do I think?
It's younger, right?
It's younger, it's more mellow. It's almost less sharp. Is that right?
It's sharp. Yeah, I would be cautious in the UK using the word sharp.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an American term,
right.
Which is not no bad thing. But sharpness can be quite confusing, I think. I think like you're right. It's a bit green, I suppose. Like, so sometimes when you get like a wine or something like that hasn't quite mellowed out enough, you don't get those umami kind of flavours. So you get that green kind of like a little bit more acidity, a bit kind of like forward.
Yeah, no, I still get this kind of. Sometimes this time of year, what is the cow's? So this is a 12-month-old.
Yeah, so December. Yeah, December. Yeah.
And that's something that I love listening to you talk about, and that variability of eating your cheese in December is going to be a unique experience from eating it in July. Yeah. January may be too close.
No. It isn't. Yeah.
But it'll be almost night and day, right? Because of the heat and what you have. And we've also tried to embrace that in beer making, in brewing and aging and cellaring, and in this beer, Ninkasi, we look at that. We look at controlling some of the parameters and then adding in a special yeast called Brettanomyces, but we've kind of controlled the playground in which it's in, meaning the amount of sugar and the temperature and the amount of yeast, and that helps it create its own character that we would never have been able to do. And it's still live, has the Brettanomyces and champagne yeast, helping give it like a frothy head. And also in industrial beer, you'll get bubbles that are all very similar in size and perfect, and like you might get an everlasting head that looks kind of like whipped cream.
Yeah.
And those are all signs of like industrial beer. But a beer head that maybe sinks, it's like got different size bubbles. These are all signs of handmade products in beer. Yeah. And so, but this is our celebration of the West Country. So 10% local apple juice. It's got some winey noted hops. They're from New Zealand. Sorry, it's not Somerset. But
where are the apples from?
Apple. I don't know the farm.
No,
Somerset.
Yeah.
Somerset. Yeah. I don't know the farm. I should definitely know that one.
I love this. The combination of cheddar and then like that apple tones. I mean, cheese and apples is like a marriage anyway, isn't it?
Can I put that one?
Yeah. Right, just love it. So good.
I don't feel as though I gave a. It's just such a heartwarming, like I find Ninkasi and your Cheddar, when you're drinking them together, it's a pairing that kind of creates a new character. Instead of contrasting or complementing, they're like, you get this creation character. And I always think of Ratatouille, the movie, with the mouse, and he's there describing the food.
Every time we taste these two, you bring up Ratatouille.
I know,
what is it?
It's because it describes what food tastings are, and I'm not talking to the same people all the time.
Yeah,
I got my bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's talking about he's got all these fireworks going off on this amazing cheese, and then another set of fireworks going off with this amazing wine, this case beer. And then when he eats them both together, there's just a whole set all over the sky of his mind. And I just wish there was a big cartooning going on around me all the time.
I know.
People could see
we see a glimpse into your brain occasionally when we have the pairing. It's quite amazing.
Well, unpredictable.
I just want to just quickly, we've done something quite radical on the farm. And in 2021, so we did this in 2019, we started it off. 2020, we really pushed it a bit further, but we stopped growing maize on the farm. So that was a big deal. Maize is great to actually feed cows.
Yeah.
It's really high energy, but actually growing it in the UK, it's very difficult to harvest. You know, you take it off in October time, and then you'll see all these kind of brown fields. You get a lot of runoff, all those types of things. So we decided that to be more sustainable with our kind of regenerative agricultural thing, we stopped growing maize. And actually, maize for cheese, I don't think it's very good. For me personally,
right.
This it creates more of a flinty kind of a different texture, and also slightly whiter. So actually going into 2020's cheese that we've already made here, you'll be experiencing cheddars with just more richness and just a deeper golden colour, and just it's going to be so much more interesting.
Right.
So exciting.
That variability is just people ask, well, why did you start here in Somerset, on this farm? And one of the reasons is because there's this cheese farmer and producer that is inspiring to us. Their approach to, we're a business, and you guys are a business, and growing your business is actually, for you, the way I interpret part of it, is actually growing the quality and the flavor and the depth and the authenticity of your cheese, in contrast to just, this is your business, let's make 12,000 rounds, not 6,000. It's not a volume thing necessarily. Volume doesn't equal success. It actually, is it maize or not? Embracing that variability and teaching that variability. That's the thing with beer, is always seen as an industrial product. This is a beer, it might as well go in the cupboard with a tin of beans, because it's going to be the same today as tomorrow. But really, beer needs to be treated like either milk, needs to be buy it, put it in your fridge, drink it fresh, or needs to be treated like wine. Buy it, have it at the correct temperature, enjoy it with food, enjoy the aroma, quiet your life down a little bit, and
think about it as well.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. It's actually value it and think about it.
And that one really, that really gets you going there.
But it's really important to add value. You think about what you're actually consuming and what you're going for, because my God, you'll actually open up this wealth of experience and actual pleasure from going, oh my word, this is different. Why is it different? Oh, okay, and that's so key, I think.
So, thanks for being inspiring.
Oh.
It's cheesy.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, next one. We're gonna go smoked.
Smoked with Modus.
Yeah.
The last one. Brilliant.
It is, yeah. So,
let's do this.
the smoked cheddar. We on our quest for better quality, and cheese. A few years ago, I got inspired by Quantic IPA and who was discussing like what happens when a cheese goes bad. And actually, when you're striving for better quality all the time, then it kind of like goes in what we've just been talking about. But if you, I never want to produce a cheese that's just good. You know, that is just boring as anything. Like, and I want to produce cheese that's like exceptional and like amazing. And if you go for that, then you're constantly pushing boundaries, and sometimes it just goes a bit west.
When you're pushing boundaries, you're making a mess.
Yeah.
And if you're not making a mess, you're not pushing boundaries.
Exactly. So what happens to those cheeses that just don't quite make it? Well, with us, we decided actually the whole smoked thing is really interesting, because a lot of commodity smoked cheeses are painted. They get like a liquid smoked paint, and then they paint it on the outside or spray it on the outside of the cheese. And that's like, it's so synthetic of a flavour that, do you know what I mean? But I think that actually when you've got these cheeses that, and when it goes a bit west for us, it tends to be a slightly softer cheese, and it just is kind of like slightly out of balance. But to bring it back into balance, we put it into the smoker, we smoke this over beach. I got a telephone box that, from the local reclamation yard, and converted that into my own smoker. You can fit 84 kilos of cheese into one telephone box, just a bit of trivia for you.
Yeah, all right.
And actually, it just adds this kind of depth. I'm not going to lie, it's a full-on cheese. You know, you only want a little bit, and if you're using the cooking and stuff, it's again like raw bang for your buck. But I'm eating more and more of this actually, and really kind of I'm into it.
You just mentioned cooking, and so my background, for those of you who don't know, I was a chef before being a brewer, and I find being a brewer has been like a natural evolution from being a chef. So in California, I was cooking, and there was not criticism, but a noticing how much of my food contained melted cheese. It was always like, why does every dish have cheese in it? It's like, well, why not? And this one, if you can, like, say you're not making a cheeseburger, you know, super simple, like type, maybe dumbing down this tasting to talk about burgers, but if you can grate a little bit of this and mix it into your mince when you make your patty, so you don't, it's not like a massive cheeseburger heavy thing, but you get some of this, and especially if you're doing those burgers inside rather than outside on a barbecue in a January day, cook them inside in a skillet or something like that, but with some of this grated inside the fillet, it's awesome.
That's exactly, but again, like another reason why we wanted to do it, you know, like bringing, like I wanted a cheese. We were finding that we were selling a lot more into like restaurants and places like that, and that's no bad thing. A few years back, people were coming on and saying, "Oh, you can't use that in that like quality in cooking. That's rubbish." You know, you can't. Like if you talk to any Italian and you say, "Oh, this is a cooking grade," what's all that about? You know, if you want to make something, a dish, taste the best it can be, then you start off with the best ingredients. So actually, with this, you know, as a cooking style cheese, I wanted to bring something that would actually marry up with that kind of meaty, Meatopia style like barbecue scene that was going on, and this has got a genuine, like, it's a horrible word, but I feel like that sums up that smokiness of the flavour smokiness, like genuine, honest, like it's just, there's like crazy imbalance, but it all comes back to balance. Do you think? Was that too philosophical?
No, when I got out of cooking, I was like, okay, I want to become a philosopher or a brewer. So when you say, is that too philosophical? I try to, like, that my mind goes in both these ways, like food, flavor, and the philosophy of food and flavor, or life. So it's always, yeah, it's right up my street. Really.
Nice. So Modus.
Modus, yeah. No, I needed to stay on track, because everything you just said, I was like, oh yeah, I got a beer to talk about. Kind of quality in equals quality out, meaning start with great ingredients, start with a great point of inspiration. A thing from like a business point of view, don't do anything just for passion and don't do anything just for money. No. You've got to have a balance of stuff in your life, and that like finds your way through with having good quality on everything that you got going on.
Yeah.
But Modus. Modus is the beer. For me, Modus is the beer myself and Andrew Cooper, co-founder, we set this brewery up to discover what this beer could be. And often in making beer, it's typically a 2-week, maybe as quick as 2 weeks, 2 to 6 week process. You start with raw ingredients, you start with a brew day, and you make this unfermented wort. It's nice and clean and sterile because you boiled it and you added yeast in there, and then the yeast is what magically transforms it into beer. So it kind of pees out alcohol and farts out CO2. Just bring the tone down a little bit. I'm American, don't worry, you can do that. So that's how you just make beer. You make this unfermented liquid, you add yeast, and it magically turns into this bubbly, alcoholic, effervescent amazingness, and you put that in a bottle or a can, and you drink it and enjoy it. Now, this beer goes on a whole other magical journey. We do those first few steps, but instead of putting it in a bottle, we put it into 2 different kinds of oak barrels, in red wine barrels and bourbon barrels. Along with a special yeast called Brettanomyces. And now, that Brettanomyces will create this cherry pie, sour, tart cherry pie kind of character. The red wine barrels, they bring this kind of vinous red wine note. And then the bourbon barrels, they kind of bring a vanilla, maybe hints of coconut if that blend is that way. And you get, for yourself, you kind of talk about that variability in the time of year that you make it. And so if you love, one quote I have in my mind from you that I'm going to butcher, was like, if you love this cheese now, for God's sake, buy it and eat it. Because next month, it's going to taste different. And with Modus Operandi, it's not quite that day, because we'll do a blend and we'll have it available for 3 months. But if you like what you're tasting in Modus Operandi, or say Ninkasi, definitely get it, get a few bottles, store it, because the next blend will be a different amount of red wine and a different amount of bourbon barrels. And we're striving for a level of consistency, but more so than that, we're striving for that sense of greatness, and a string of continuity between the blends, not consistency to the T, like to the C, to the T, I don't know, but a string of continuity between all of our Modus blends, and then we're giving up the liquid to bacteria, to healthy, good probiotic type bacteria and yeast, and that's where we kind of take our hands off and we have a sense of discovery, of tasting and smelling these oak barrels, and then another sense of creation in blending. So how much red wine, how much bourbon, how much sour barrels. We set out to discover what this beer could taste like here in Westcombe, and you had to set up a company to do it.
I feel like it's a massive privilege to actually see the evolution of this, because like tasting these first batches, when you did actually make these first batches, they were awesome. I really like those first batches because of their roughness, right? Because there's that kind of thing. But every single time I taste this, there's a variant. This is like getting more and more appealing to, I get it. I really like the evolution. It's really nice actually. There's, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I tasted one which was kind of which was really good, but it lost something, but now it feels like it's pulled back even more. But again, like that can be down to the barrels and what you had available to you. I mean, that's exactly the same with this.
Yeah.
I think that's what I love about the wild beer is actually, like, as a business, you know, it's not necessarily for every single person, but you're actually pushing those boundaries out to actually appeal to the different sectors of society, but also even in the individual beers, you can challenge people and actually go, right, you know, and wow, it's such an exciting thing. It really is. I like this a lot.
Yeah, thank you. My mind went in too many different directions. I didn't know which one to go on. But
I think it works with the smoke as well. It really does.
So this pairing, I think, works on like a complementing like intensity. You know, like this beer is definitely intense. It's not for the faint-hearted.
They're big hitters, both of them.
It's 7% alcohol, so that means like there's more ingredients going in, which means it's going to be more flavorful, not just alcoholic tasting. You know, you don't taste it and go like, wow, it's spirity, but it's bigger, it's richer. The smoke, the cheddar's already big, and then you're adding the smoke on top with smoke, not liquid
paint.
Dressing, paint.
Yeah.
So it's like they're both just this like intensity of flavor. But so we set out to create a beer that could replace red wine on a dinner table. So like any time that you would want to have red wine, and you want to just have a conversation piece with some friends in a different time maybe, but bring a bottle of Modus and see what people think. Challenge your own perspectives on what drink could pair with something. It doesn't have to be a traditional red wine or a traditional white wine for like Ninkasi, but like these ones are what do you pair? How do you do like drink pairings? Think of those. There's a simple one there. If you want red wine, grab a Modus. If you want white wine, grab an Ninkasi, and you won't be that far off. And it'll definitely be a great place to start off.
I think I'd go further than that actually. I'd get a natural wine, I'd get this, and I'd get this. And then I'd do that whole kind of, like, and then you almost like it takes you, because you like, if you're going into it not having any approach to it, I think actually having that journey of actually understanding. Otherwise, if you go straight in with one of those, like sometimes it can be like, whoa, what on earth? Is that really? And then, but suddenly, if you do that whole stage thing and get a few, I think that's why I think these tastings work really well, you know. But yeah, man, I love my job.
I know.
Is it good?
It is. I wish this was all it was.
Yeah.
But actually, learning and creating this.
When pumps go and then your cows get out and all this thing happens, you just got to think of these days.
Yeah. You got to think of the smiles and the life that it's bringing to people.
Exactly.
Through this stress and sweat and tears.
And let's hope 2021.
Yeah.
As well.
The stress and sweat and tears of 2020 are evolving, and thank you so much for enjoying this case of beer and cheese. We look forward to doing this more and more with you. If you're liking this, please let us know. Also, please follow Tom and Westcombe Dairy on socials, and us if you're not. But let us know what you like. Which of the tastings that you like the most or didn't like, where we thought we maybe missed it. Always good to hear.
Feedback's amazing. Yeah, love it. Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.